The parliamentary elections are due in Bangladesh in February next year. However, these elections come at a time when the shadow of the July 2024 student led protests still remain on the election process in Bangladesh, with the Awami League clearly being out in the cold and not participating in the elections. We have with us Asif Bin Ali, a doctoral researcher at the Georgia State University. Thank you so much for joining us. So, my first question to you is, how do you see this really election process taking off under the shadow of the student led protest still?
Thank you very much for your question. Uh, I think the election that we are expecting to happen in a couple of months, at least like by February, uh, the election is not going to be inclusive. If the definition of inclusivity is Awami League is participating in the election, because so far in the ground we haven't seen any symbol or the political arrangement that Awami League is likely to participate in the election. So the election would be mainly contested between two big party and then other small parties. The two big party are BNP, Bangladesh Nationalist Party, Jamaat Islami, who are representing the Islamist bloc, and then newly formed political party, the NCP, which is which is led by some of the prominent figure who were also participating in the and leading the July uprising. So in terms of participatory, well, from the government in and also from the political party in, would be an attempt to make the election participatory to ensure that as many voter as possible should come out and vote. Uh, Overall, I think the focus of the current government as well as the contesting party is make the election participatory, but not necessarily inclusive. There would be another aspect in the election as well, which is the violence part, because as you are seeing the newspapers and when the election commission announced the election date, within 24 hours of that announcement, one of probable candidate, Mr. Osman Hadi, was brutally killed in the daylight, and it signals that when the election time will, approach more, there would be more violence, and we can see that there are weapons out, in the field. So there were a significant number of weapons which have been looted during the uprising from police and other places, and at least 25% of those weapons have not been, you know, taken care by the security forces. So these almost like 25% of those lost weapons are still in ground, and I'm not sure how many new weapons have entered in the country. So given together, there are the fuel and the fire on the ground, and it is likely to impact the election greatly. However, despite all these things, I believe the government as well as the major political parties, they understand the risk of not having an election, because the election is the only way to restart the state and to work towards a relative stability.
So, when you look at the role of the Bangladesh Army Chief, General Waqar, how do you really see the army responding to the current security threats? Of course, with the police really being under fire for the collapse of the law and order, particularly after the student led protests. But the army continues to play that balancing role. What would you say to their role now in the transition that is about to take place?
Well, I mean, as far as I understand, since 5th August, even like since before 5th August, Army is playing a very responsible role. Uh, First of all, the Army is playing responsible role in terms of not taking over the power, because as you can see there we have another neighboring state, which is Pakistan, and the way the army chief has got like the constitutional immunity for them, this is unthinkable in Bangladesh. And if the army chief would have wanted that after 5th August, I don't think there were any force would have stopped him, that he is taking over the power. But he didn't do that. He was more responsible. He left the politics in the hand of the politician while promised to help the civilian leadership to maintain the law and order. And so far, in last 1.5 year, he has kept the promise. And one of the more important thing is that it was also pretty clear that he was not planning to take over or like also jeopardize the democratic process, because during his first interview with an international newspaper, he said that the 16-month would be a decent time period to start for an election. And it seems like now, based on the election date and everything, we see that army kept that timeline pushing with the interim government, that we need to have election as soon as possible. Now, it's also a fact that the police is still weak, and many of them do not have the moral and the confidence to come back and work fully. There were some mismanagement as well. The bureaucracy is still slowly working, sometimes crippling as well. So therefore, I think army was and is the only institution fully functioning right now, and that is also the protection net for Bangladesh. Right now, in the democratic transition process, army is playing the role of a guarantor, and so far, I would say that they are playing the role as a responsible partner.
Now, with BNP expected to play a much larger role and also expected to be the single largest party when elections are held, to be contesting the elections, given the history, we see Tariq Rahman now returning to Bangladesh on December 25th. There is a lot of buzz and excitement amongst the cadres, but there's also been a huge shadow of a security concern regarding Tariq's return and the reason for the delay. How do you see this playing out in the next few days? And if you can shed light on what have been really BNP's concerns regarding his comeback to Dhaka.
Uh, you see, like based on my understanding, what I see right now, Bangladesh is a ticking bomb. Okay, there was a delayed expectation of violence. After 5th August, the kind of violence many of us expected, it was not like that. The violence, so because Awami League once claimed that if it goes out of power, 500,000 of its party members would be brutally slaughtered on the street. So that was the statement of Awami League Secretary General once, but it didn't happen. But that doesn't mean that violence didn't happen. After 5th August, we saw escalation of violence as well. And the United Nations Fact Finding Commission report, which covered the period even after 5th August, they also indicated the level of revenge violence. So, from that point of view, I think in that context, and also if you consider the recent attack on Hadi, because this is still an allegation. However, the kind of evidences that is coming in the media from the some credible journalistic sources as well as from the government, it seems the person who attacked Hadi is directly linked with a student wing of former government and its party, Awami League. Now, of course, this is a matter of court to prove it later on, but on the ground, the situation is that okay, Awami League was involved in the killing, and very interestingly, Awami League haven't issued a single statement that they are not involved in that killing. So I presume that if Hadi dies in Singapore, because he has been airlifted in Singapore, it would escalate the violence a lot. So many group of people would then target many Awami League members, as well as like some other people would also face violence based on that emotions. And then we are also seeing a regrouping of these, more conservative group which were involved in the movement. They're regrouping and reforming their own in group and also bringing up new terms. For example, like cultural fascist, like these terms are not properly defined, but then these terms are also getting used largely so that a new form of political violence can be started. Now, I would not say that this violence is contextless because people are angry. There are people who are extremely angry. There are people who want to get revenge. And there are people who think that their issues have not been addressed. Now, therefore, I am saying that Bangladesh is right now a ticking bomb. And on the other hand, if you closely keep an eye on the Awami League people who are communicating with their followers through the online platforms, they are also kind of calling for violence. So there are more voice from both the group who are calling for violence, whereas there are only few voices who are trying to speak sensibly and calling for stability and a relative order. Now, there comes the role of Tariq Rahman because Tariq Rahman, since 5th August, whatever the public messaging he and his party is doing, particularly he is doing, it is basically pro stability and pro peace. So he is calling for stability, he is calling towards a democratic transition, and then he is calling for justice as well. Now, he being away from the home, it has negative impact on his party a lot. Definitely, in last couple of months, the Jamaat was aggressively promoting its agendas, whereas BNP seems like just dealing the issue based on case by case. They are not actually fighting back. Now, BNP will get a chance to fight back right now if Tarek comes back on the ground, and since he is right now the most popular leader and also uh, it seems the only sensible leader. I would say I do not want to exaggerate on that, but based on the other leaders speaking about revenge and everything, his presence in Bangladesh right now is extremely necessary to ensure that peace and stability remains under the control, and the government can also work, and also the BNP as a bigger political party can help in that process. Now, see, my position is very simple. I have seen death, and I don't want to see any more family losing their family member just because of these political clashes. And even the presence of Tariq can save one single life. I don't care who that life belongs to. Is it a member of Awami League or is it a member of NCP or anyone? That is the biggest thing for us right now. But I think so far the government is also trying its best to make sure that the everything remains under control and that police remains functional if any escalation happens. But Tariq's return on ground will exceptionally boost the morale of his followers and the party members, and it would positively impact to drive the political narratives towards more constructive promotions. Now, I will just finish by adding three things. Since the election date has been announced, all the political parties have started promoting for the elections. If I look at the larger phenomena, we would see that the BNP has organized its election campaign based on the services and the promises that they are giving, mostly regarding the good governance part. The Jamaat has organized its promises based on the religious sentiment. So if you vote for Jamaat, you will get a ticket for Jannat. So that's the line. On the other hand, NCP has organized its election campaign more around like anti-India sentiment. So the anti-India sentiment is common across the platforms like BNP, Jamaat, and NCP. But for BNP, the primary goal is the good governance, whereas for Jamaat and NCP, the anti-Indian sentiment remains one of the central promotional theme. Now, in that context, I think when Tariq will come back, he would also play a role of behaving like an adult and influencing the people, like how to speak politically, followed by norms, not by hatred or populism. That's what I am expecting. So let's see. Once he come back, we'll see more about him.
So while you mention about political violence, of course, escalating ahead of elections, we are also seeing voices coming out talking of rise in extremism and also extremist groups being fueled by, cross-border Pakistan ISI really playing a role and making that inroad. How true are these concerns, and what do you really think of a combination of political violence with extremism really making, as you say, a very deadly mix right now in Bangladesh?
See, that's a very important question, but also the answer can be very black and white, cannot be, because there are nuances here. I see like the way Indian media is framing this particular issue, that the Pakistan intelligence service is operating in Dhaka and also aiding some of the Islamist extremists. Uh, Now, I I'm not in a position to accept that accusation or deny that accusation because I'm a civilian. I'm not supposed to have intel which deals with the sensitive national security issues. But what I understand, based on my reading and my connections within the journalist community as well as other stakeholders, uh, the Bangladesh establishment clearly knows that the risk of allowing any country's intelligence operation in Dhaka, they don't want to repeat the experience of the past. Bangladesh had a very bad experience from 2001 to 2006. And I think overall, I mean, since then, the entire Bangladesh administration understands the risk of a foreign country operating in Dhaka, either to destabilize its inner security or exporting violence to the neighboring states. So at the structural level, at the institutional level, I think there is a clear messaging there. However, is it the same in the public space? I would say no, because in the public space there is populism a lot. And when populism happens, then of course there would be leaders in Dhaka who will speak of dividing India. Now, these kind of populist rhetoric are there on the ground. People feel good when they listen to it. They feel a kind of warmongering, enjoyment. But then when it comes to the sensible leadership of the country who are actually governing the country, they understand the risk. However, I also think that uh, I don't want to underplay the risk of Islamist extremists in Bangladesh. Of course, they're a threat. Of course, there are group of people who do not believe in democracy, who do not believe in the concept of modern state, and who want to rebuild and reshape Bangladesh as an Islamic state based on Sharia. And their model, if you ask them what's their model is Taliban model. Now, recently, India also hosted Taliban foreign minister. So I don't see India would have many problem with that model. But we have serious model with that. Because any form of Taliban model will destroy everything that we as a Bengali Bangladeshi nation were aspiring for the last 54 years. So my position is very simple that eventually when the elected government will come, they would be more serious regarding all these security threats. Right now, I am not sure to what extent this security threat regarding the Islamist extremism have been discussed in the Bangladesh political space. But eventually, when the democratic government will come, they will focus more on it. Regarding the Pakistan intelligence service operation in Dhaka, there are rumors, but I would prefer more on concrete evidences to make a comment on that.
And this time, the elections are also crucial because they're also accompanied by the constitutional referendum. Can you tell us something about that and what all really is the expectation of the people of Bangladesh when it comes to constitutional reforms at this stage?
Well, this election is going to be very important because this is not only going to elect who is going to govern the country for next 5 years, but also what is going to be the governing structure of the country. So, as you have been following the reforms proposals in Bangladesh, you have visited Dhaka and interviewed some political leaders, including some of the people who were involved with that reforms commission. Uh, so I would say that this is going to be a fundamental change in the governing system of Bangladesh. However, though the idea of referendum sounds democratic, but I see there are problem there as well because the referendum is packing up so many proposals that for an ordinary voter, like for a farmer you know, who is not directly connected with all these discussions, it would be very difficult for that farmer to make a decision that what kind of a state he or she wants. Now, From that point of view, I would say that though referendum idea sounds very interesting, very promising and democratic, but there are confusions around it. However, then what is the alternative? The one alternative could be, and many of us were pushing this alternative, that okay, let the reform be done by the elected government, by the elected parliament. However, there were also discussion that what if the upcoming parliament and the upcoming political party don't keep the promise, because it happened before as well that political party, when they have win the election, they not necessarily follow the promises that they have made previously. Like
Right.
similar examples they brought in from 1990. So there was this mistrust that the political party would not be implementing those reforms, and therefore, in order to avoid that mistrust, the interim government wanted to ensure that all the discussions that they have done, they should be implemented through the elections. Still, there are provisions that the future elected parliament will have some power in order to change and implement some of the reforms proposal. uh, I would say, like, still this is a developing situation. We need to wait a couple of more weeks to see like which party is promoting in favor of giving yes vote to the referendum, and which party is not promoting or remaining silent, because that will tell a lot about what is going to be the referendum result in the upcoming election.
So we will continue our conversation on Bangladesh elections, and we look forward to joining you again for a more detailed discussion on the way forward for Bangladesh and its people. Thank you so much, Asif. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the week as well for inviting me. You have a good day.